Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States of America, is planning a coup, and there's a way for you to stop it. Let's talk about that. In 2016-2017, when I looked at Trump, his actions and his policies, I called him a proto-fascist, someone who was too incompetent to be a real fascist, a real precursor to real fascism. I was wrong. Trumpism is fascism.
Hello, I'm a news dude, and here's some news. The President of the United States goes by the name Donald Trump, and recently Donald Trump did this and said this, and has been doing that while saying this kind of stuff. And they're all things one might call Trumpism, which is a sneaky way of saying fascism without having to explain it for 40 minutes, 35 minutes, I don't have a watch. So, here's some more news, previously on some more news. We don't do previously ons? Because it's a news show. Okay, oh, and I'm talking to myself right now? Okay. Well, on the last episode of this timely news show that just talks about fascism now, apparently, we discussed how, although sure, Trump talks like Hitler and does some Hitler-y kind of stuff sometimes, it's not a fair or helpful comparison. And besides, he's much closer to Mussolini. Because fascism takes on comforting and familiar imagery of its nation and leader, as well as some unique personality and culture. So American fascism wouldn't look like Nazism or Italian fascism or any other nation's movement. It would look all American.
What we see with Trump is just how fascism exists today. One, when thinks of fascism, things like those military outfits and huge displays of military prowess through those parades come to mind, or maybe cold and calculating personalities, huge displays of strength. But strategies have changed, aesthetics have changed. And it seems like the fascist chicken might have come home to roost, because Trump has now publicly said that he would not guarantee a peaceful transition of power to the next president. Let's just take a look.
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville, there's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
The second question is, will you...
Please, go ahead.
Why won't you...
Yikes. Well, that's a coup. Now, when we think of coups, something that might come to mind is the right-wing coup in Bolivia, wherein Christian fascists, under the threat of death, made the indigenous Evo Morales resign from his presidency, and then unleashed a reign of terror in the country. Supporters of Morales were killed by the police and the military, and those engaging in these acts were rewarded. Here's the key. No coup is successful unless the military allows it. They have the monopoly in force, and anything that happens in a country happens because the military allows it. This is a side note, but the coups against Maduro in Venezuela have failed only because he really helps out the military generals. If that relationship did not exist, Juan Guaido would have been made president long ago. So, looking at Trump, how is his relationship with the military? Folks, it's not that good. He regularly disparages soldiers, veterans. He has conflicts with Pentagon all the time, and his erratic foreign policy has really made people higher up in the military quite suspicious. It made the previous defense secretary resign for one, so it's not that good. It is because of these tensions with the military that I don't see a traditional coup being successful for Trump, because I see no world wherein if Joe Biden wins, the military will go and help Trump to stay in office. I just don't see that happening. So you might be asking, where's the coup? And it starts with the right-wing media in the country. For months now, the president is leading the charge against mail-in ballots, and this is being amplified by the Republican establishment and the right-wing media. He's saying that the Democrats will commit voter fraud, that this fraud always happens when obviously this is false and error rates for mail-in ballots are very, very low. Why is he doing that? He is priming his audience for the coup. Democratic voters, for a variety of reasons, are more likely to vote via mail-in ballots, thanks in majority to this effort. And therefore, it's likely that Trump will win the majority of the electoral votes on November 3rd. This is the moment of the coup. Republicans have been saying for a long time that the winner will be decided on November 3rd. And that's because Trump will declare victory on November 3rd. Think back to Bush v. Gore, when the recount was stopped by a Republican majority Supreme Court in a very, very close election, and the election was given to Bush. It'll be that on steroids. The court at that time intervened in Florida's recount, but this time the plan is to muddy the waters while the count is happening and declare a premature victory on November 3rd. They'll do everything they can to move this matter into the Supreme Court, which, with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is going to lean Republican. If the election goes to the Supreme Court, the contest will happen on the legitimacy of the mail-in ballots. And if the race is close enough, he'll win. This is how it's going to pan out. Trump will declare victory on November 3rd, and when the counting begins to happen and the electoral votes start to shift to the Democrats, he's going to intervene, he's going to challenge that, and it'll go straight to the courts. So, if the odds and the courts are stacked against you, how do you win? The Democrats have to be ready to be publicly skeptical of the courts and be ready to lead a popular movement against any such action. Gore did not contest the election and stuck with the legitimacy of the courts, but Democrats cannot afford to do that. I mean, at this point, I have seen absolutely nothing from them that they have any such plans. I'll be honest with you.
And you can do so as soon as possible. 10 states, as I said, on Friday started their early voting the day that we lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
But to be clear, you're not taking any arrows out of your quiver. You're not ruling anything out.
Good morning. Sunday morning. We have a responsibility. We take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Good morning. Sunday morning. We have a...
I still believe there's something that you can do to still stop the coup. You, the voter. I know a bunch of you are going to get mad at this, but the primary way you can stop Donald Trump is by voting for Joe Biden on election day. I know. To make the case for legitimacy of votes for Joe Biden, the winning margin has to be as large as possible. I really need you to understand that voting is a tactical choice and it's not a moral agreement or a moral promotion or anything like that. I have a lot of reasons for why you need to vote for Joe Biden, and I could make a video on that if you want. Let me know in the comments, but this is more important now than ever. This is an emergency. Joe Biden needs to sweep the election and win by such a big margin that there's no question of the legitimacy of the votes, and Trump cannot challenge it. That's just the fact. Now, I know some of you don't want to vote for Joe Biden because you don't like him, you don't agree with his policies, but it really is a question of whether you want to live in a fascist coup government or a liberal one. If you're anyone that cares about progress, you want to vote for Joe Biden. If you're a lefty, you really want a liberal opposition, you don't want a fascist opposition. Believe me, it's going to get worse. This is just the historical reality. Because the goal is the widest winning margin possible for a stronger case in the Supreme Court, you need to vote for Joe Biden even in the deep blue states. I'm just sorry. Even in deep blue states or deeply red states, because it is important to show that Joe Biden has the clear mandate. I know you are planning for a joke vote or writing Bernie Sanders, but the situation has changed dramatically. It all comes down to this, folks. Also, since the problem is with mail-in ballots, I would really encourage for you to go and vote early and in person. I know it sucks, but I think it is really essential. If you go to vote.org, you can find info about early voting in your state. If you can be a poll watcher, please do. This is not all though. You need to be prepared to go out in the streets to protest when things really start going down. And be really prepared for your safety. Alt-righters, Proud Boys, armed militias, the likes of these people will be the Brooks brothers this time. It's all going to go down in 5 weeks, folks. I really do hope you stay safe. And you know what? I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope that the margin of victory is very large and there's no contestation and everything works out. Here's hoping. I know a bunch of people are going to get mad at this because that's how the internet works, but I really want you to understand the ramifications of this election on the whole world and be realistic. I really want to build a community here which is better than many groups online in its analysis of power and is realistic and effective in the real world. And I really do hope that you share that same goal. On that note, this is the end of the video. Let's talk down in the comments in good faith. Alright, and go vote, get others to vote, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.